Hey, I'm Victor Margiotta, and this is the Community Show. A big part of community is sharing. So I'm going to share with you my new friend Adam, and I'm going to share a recipe that I got from a witch doctor, an Italian witch doctor. This will cure anything that ails you, especially now that everybody has a cold and the flu. This is the stuff, I'm telling you. It's got all the things you need. It's a chicken soup, but what makes it very good for you is that it's got cumin, it's got cilantro, which is an excellent cure-all, and the chicken base, it's all what's just right for you to get better. I know there's a lot of people out there that haven't been feeling great, so we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to thank Adam for coming on again. This is part 2 of the show. We didn't get to talk about everything we wanted to talk about, so we're going to go and keep talking. How are we doing?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
So you're also a victim of whatever this bug is that's going around.
The flu is not black belt approved.
No.
It's one of those things that I'm fighting off and have been for the last 10 days. So I'm on the mends, and just glad that it's leaving.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made it. I already started the celery, carrots, and onions, so that I want to try and have the soup done by the time the show is done. So we're at the point now where I'm going to throw the butter in. I'm going to throw the garlic in. We don't want to put the garlic in too soon because then it burns and then you get that flavor of burnt garlic, which I don't like personally. I don't think anybody else does. So just let that brown in the middle. So we were talking about parenting, and you wrote a book about parenting, and it was called...
what was it called?
Martial arts.
Yes, the one fight you don't want to lose.
The one fight.
Improving martial arts principles to help guide your children into a better adulthood. So
excellent.
It's a really good topics in there that I've learned over the 30 years teaching children, and I'm able to apply those firsthand with the students that I teach.
Yeah, and you've taught hundreds of students.
Yes, thousands actually over the last 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm proud and honored to say that it's one of the giving points of my life is to give back the legacy that my instructor gave to me, which was to really lift kids to new heights. And we say it kind of funny, but it's easier to build a child than rebuild an adult. So if you can give them the tools and all the equipment necessary when they're young enough, then they'll be empowered to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, it's easier to learn than to unlearn things. So.
Yes, the bad habits are easy to make and hard to break, and the good habits are hard to make and even harder to keep.
That's for sure.
Definitely.
Now, you are a role model in my eyes. I see, that you're trying to help your students. You're an outstanding person in the community. You give back. You do what you can. Who are some of your role models? Who would you say is one of your big role models?
Well, my number one role model is my mom.
Okay.
She's the one, I'm not sure if I told you when I was younger, that me and my twin brother were born, and I had some complications being born. And because of that, they didn't bring my mom, they didn't bring me to my mom.
Sure.
And my mom was kind of freaking out, you don't do that with an Italian, Sicilian woman.
That's right.
And she just felt something was not right with me. So she had called the doctors after they kept me for a couple of days, and there was something that was going on with me. So after they checked into it, they definitely saw that I had an allergic reaction to one of the medications. And because of all that, being premature and all this stuff, they said I would never pass the 4th grade reading level. So my mom wouldn't take no for an answer. So she always looked at the cup as half full. Yeah. So she would teach me my alphabet on my back, and she really spent a lot of time with me. So I to this day, I always tell the parents, if it wasn't for them, the children wouldn't do and be half as much as they are. Yeah. So fast forward, I graduated college with honors. I got my PhD in martial arts sciences, and all this stuff is really because of her and her not giving up on me, which a lot of people would say, oh, well, the doctors say it, so it must be true. So I'm really proud that she didn't give up on me, and she was one of the biggest role models for me.
Now, you said something when we first started talking today about one of the biggest problems in society today as far as parenting. But hold on. Now, the garlic just browned. The butter is there. The celery, onions, and carrots are ready. So now I'm going to go ahead and add. I have potatoes in the chicken stock. I didn't want the potatoes to brown because if in the air, you know, the potatoes get oxidized. So I put them in with the chicken stock. So that was the next step anyway. All right, I also added some salt and pepper. And it's a good idea to add the salt now instead of at the end so that the potatoes absorb the salt and the flavor. And the other thing is, it's good that the stock was cold. So now the potatoes will cook through as the stock warms, so do the potatoes, and they'll cook through evenly. So that is a good thing. Okay.
So it's funny because you see all these cooking shows that you can never smell it. So it's really awesome that I can smell it.
Right, you're right here, and that's good for you. So what is this one problem that we have in society?
Well, I think it's really the lack of confidence.
Okay.
And this can go and mask itself as fear, because fear is, we use it as an acronym, as a false experience appearing real. So a lot of people in their minds will make it mean something that it definitely could not be. So a lot of times we're meaning-making machines, I say. And we might automatically attach, oh, well, this is why that happened. And it could be the furthest thing from the truth, but the inner dialogue gets the best of us. And we teach the kids, that's called stinking thinking. So we tell them to take it out, throw it in the garbage, and don't think that way. Anytime they'd say, I can't do something, or I'm not good enough, or I'm this, or I'm that, and, let's face it, kids can be mean nowadays.
Yeah.
So when they say things like, you're ugly, or this, or that, the kids just go home and it ruins their day. And when a kid can just forget about that, and we teach them, just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. And that's important, because if they listen to this and they own it, then they're going to just really feel that same way. And that's not true.
Yep.
So if they can really stand up for themselves and have the confidence to stand up and just say, hey, you know what, that's your opinion and that's fine. But, they'll think differently.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing what parents do inadvertently. Yeah. So there's 5 words I always say. You can never not teach.
Yep.
So a lot of times people do things inadvertently without thinking about it. It's happened many times to me growing up, my parents, and sure with yourself, and I see it nowadays all the time with kids and their parents. So one of the things if I can share a story when I was younger, my father, because we were a family of 5 children, and they told me they told my parents they would never have children, which is kind of comical because my father's like, where's those doctors? I'd like to meet them. But my father, would be very frugal, or should I say thrifty. So when we would go to the movies, he would say, oh, you're going to be this age now. We're going to get you in as a kid. Right. So even though I was a young teenager and I could have to pay full price, he would bend the rules a little bit. And I see why. The challenge with that is it made me look to be thrifty, or made me look to learn how to cut corners. And it's a real hard thing to try to unlearn, because you're so conditioned that you think it's just normal. Like, what? No, everybody doesn't do this? And as you get older and you start meeting different people and your spouses and such, you start learning some of these things aren't just so copacetic. Yeah. And when you can understand it and then you can apply it, then you can change it. So those things were the things that could be a negative effect, and then the positive effect could look at it like, wow, he was thrifty. He was like, when we went to IHOP, we would get all the kids there, and although we didn't have the finances to do it, he would get 1 silver dollar pancakes and divide the 18 amongst the 5 kids and bring little packets of Lipton's, iced tea mix and mix it with the water, so we didn't all have, $2 drinks. Right. So you can see how that could also help trying to see how you can manage things and still get the benefit of going out as a family and just not going over the top.
Yep.
So I think if you look at it constructively, you can look at both sides.
Yeah. Well, I've been told that I'm a child of the Depression because I'll use a match 3 times. We at the restaurant, the stoves don't have pilot, so I'll relight the match with the one pilot that's in the oven, and then I'll light the stove 3 times on the same match. Meanwhile, we got a whole box full of matches, but
Right.
I can't help myself. It's just like I don't even want to lose one little piece of this cilantro. I like that cilantro or parsley that I have going here. Now, parsley is excellent. It's very high in vitamin B. The problem is you're not going to sit there and eat a whole thing of parsley, but they do make vitamins from parsley. And cilantro, they say, has antimicrobial properties, and that's why it's very good for things like the bug, because it'll help clear your system out. So anyway, in business, leadership is very important. Lead by example rather than just by telling somebody, by doing. Now that's a big part of parenting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Leading by example is the hardest thing that leaders and parents, teachers, coaches, mentors have to follow, because it's the easiest to kind of veer away from. It's easy to say, don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, where's my beer?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, don't speed. Where's that radar detector?
Yeah.
It's easy to say,
Mhm.
don't smoke,
Yeah.
as you light up.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for that message to be congruent with the child to say, but wait a minute. And then the parent comes out, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah.
I told you to do this, you need to listen to me. And it's really hard for the subconscious to make that understood. It's like those 5 words, you can never not teach. By doing it, you're automatically saying it's okay. Now, of course, you can really logically talk about how the body cannot absorb the beer or the liquor, like when you're a child as compared to an adult, and you can talk all that through nicely. It's just hard for the child to get it and understand, like, why is that okay for you and not for me? So I always say that there's the difference between a smart person and a wise person. And here's the challenge. What's the difference between a smart person and a wise person? A smart person learns something. A wise person applies it. So a lot of smart people out there know that smoking is damaging their lives, but they're not applying that knowledge to become wise from it. So it's really, really challenging, because we'll teach even in our classes about the dangers of smoking. Because martial arts is about life protection. It's not about punching and kicking. Anybody can punch and kick.
Yeah.
So
It's more of defense.
we teach them self-protection and learning to stay away from peer pressure and learning to not do those type of things that are going to negatively affect your body is a bad thing. So we want to make sure that the children understand. And they'll even say, but my mom smokes or my dad smokes. And it's a really fine line where you have to be careful, but also you want to understand to teach the lesson and give them the tools so that they understand, And it's very, very hard to lead by example.
It is.
Especially in this day and age. You were talking about the matches, and I was thinking, well, how a lot of times in our society, we're a throwaway type of society.
Without a doubt.
So, like, everybody's got to get the next cell phone case, and you need 25 of them. You can't just have one of them, or there's got to be this or that, or just throw away paper plates and just go to the next thing. And there's something to be said about the traditions of waste not, want not type of stuff, and I think there's a balance, like anything. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Okay, so this is starting to come to a boil. We got time on that, but I'm actually going to have a little side dish with our soup. I'm going to make a little shrimp scampi, especially for the crew. I know they like that stuff. All right, so self-esteem and getting along with others, building strong minds and strong bodies. These are all concepts in the book that you talk about.
They're principles. They're understanding you know, to build a better body and a stronger mind is, again, to be able to stay away from peer pressure. And it's so very difficult to teach that lesson of peer pressure. You know, we have a drill in the school, if I can share with you what we do.
Yep.
Our junior class, we break down by ages, so we'll have, like, you know, 10 through 16-year-olds. And I do this probably for the last 20 years. I'll wait till one student has to leave to use the bathroom. And I'll tell the group, whatever I say, pick the opposite. And I'll take 2 sticks, and we'll put them up against the wall, and one's long and one's short. So when the student comes back from using the bathroom, I'll say, all right, class, we have 2 sticks. One is long and one is short. Who knows which one the short one is? And, of course, everybody raises their hands, and I say, okay, well, one at a time, I'll pick them up, and I'll say, can you please pick up the short one? And they'll walk over to it, and they'll pick up the long one. And I'll look in my corner of my eye, I'll look at the kid who went to the bathroom. They were like looking like something's really wrong. And I'll do this probably about 4 times. I'll keep picking different kids.
Yep.
And every kid will pick up the large one. And then the last person I pick will be the one who went to the restroom. And I'll come up and I'll say, can you please hand me the short stick? And they pick up the long stick and they give it to me. And everybody's jaw drops. Everybody couldn't believe it. They did not think that he would fall for it. And I said, so what, is that the short stick? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, you sure? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, which one is it? The other one is the short stick. I said, why did you give me this one? Because everybody else was giving it to you. And I didn't want to look like I was wrong. So I'll say, welcome to peer pressure. And I'll let them understand, remember this drill when somebody offers you a cigarette. Because you're going to know right from wrong, but you're going to still do it because of that. And it's really, really tough.
Well, that was like when you said, well, everybody else is doing it. And what was the thing? Well, if somebody jumped off the bridge, you're going to do it too? So, no. Stay away from the bridge. All right, I'm throwing the shrimp in. Oh, we got plenty of that. I put the shrimp in first because the pan was very hot. All right. And again, I don't like to burn the garlic, but I am going to throw in some butter. All right. One more. And I have to cut up the garlic, but I got time on that, so. All right, I'm also cutting up the chicken for the soup. I pan-seared it so it locks in the juices. Now, if I was making a huge pot of soup, which I usually do at the restaurant, I would just cook a whole chicken right in the pot and then break it up. But since we're only doing a small pot and we're just doing it for show, we got just enough chicken. I'm going to actually put that in now. Oh, I can leave that right here. So put the chicken in. Now you're lactose intolerant.
No. Close.
What?
Gluten-free.
Oh, gluten-free. So how do you have to deal with that? I know there's a lot of people that...
Well, it's definitely, I look at it like it's a positive instead of a negative, because if there's anything that you have to have, it might as well be something that is actually better for you.
Yeah, right?
So you eat a little bit more healthier, and you stay away from wheat and flour and gluten, and I'm happy to say a lot of things are gluten-free nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of cooks know that
Oh,
and how
yeah,
to make
we have
things.
to have it at the restaurant. We got the gluten-free flour and the gluten-free pasta. And like you mentioned, if I'm making a chicken dish, instead of putting flour on the chicken, like a chicken francaise or a chicken marsala, we'll use the cornstarch. So that's a good way to do that.
Definitely is much easier nowadays. Even the cereals are starting to become more gluten-free.
Okay, the soup is cooking. Now we got the chicken and the cilantro and the parsley. And I'm also going to add some eggs. So let me cut up some egg. I cooked the egg first. It's hard boiled. How long do you cook a 3-minute egg? 3 minutes. Okay. Now you had some other people that helped you with the book, or that gave you permission to use some of their
Yeah,
tips?
we had some authors that came in, and they were very good parenting authors that gave some insights, and they helped write, I think, 3 or 4 of the chapters of the book, which was, I was honored to have them do that.
Yep.
And it's really good to kind of, you'll see different insights from different perspectives. It's not just a one-way street, and it kind of, you know, my whole take on it and my understanding is how these things applied to the students that I was teaching. So I was able to apply those things, you know, like reward, don't bribe. So there'll be, you know, a parent who might say, you know, Susie, if you have a really good class today, I'll take you out to XYZ.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you're setting yourself up to be blackmailing all the time to get a positive response from your child. So in order to change that, you can reward. So it's like, wow, Susie, I got such great reviews from your teacher. Let's go get a sundae today. So it's like, wow, it's an after effect. It's not a before bride type of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to your original questions of, you know, who influenced me and who became my role models, is one, of course, was my mom, and second of all was my karate teacher, because my karate teacher, William Richardson, gave me the ability to stand up for myself, and so much what I wanted, which is what a young teenage boy wants, is revenge over the kids who beat him up, or you know, my story was the Karate Kid, so I lived that whole wanting to revenge myself, you know, and my teacher taught me it was so much more than that, and to have the tools to really stand up for myself and not fear those type of situations gave me the ability to have more confidence. So that's where I feel a lot of the challenges in today's day and age is the lack of confidence. That one word that will stop bullies in their track, which is confidence. You know. That is smelling delicious.
That smells really good, right? Excellent. Now, the idea of giving the child 2 choices instead of, you know, and also, you know, don't say, well, no TV for a week, and then later that day they're watching TV.
Yeah, there's 2 things that you hit upon that are really important, and I try to guide the parents into understanding that too many choices is like a restaurant with too big of a menu. You sit there so long and you're just like, you can't decide because everything looks so good. So the same thing happens with too many choices. When you let your child dictate or determine what the outcome is, then you're just really at the disposal of the child. So you have to sit there and you have to wait and you have to encourage them to come up with the right answer and try to persuade them maybe that's not the right way. And instead, if you just focused on giving the child 2 choices, and those 2 choices don't necessarily have to be that you want, it could be one that they may want, but then there's going to be consequences to that choice. So now at the end of the day, the child is not saying, you forced me to do this. You can say, no, Susie, you chose that, and this is the consequence because of that. And the next time that comes up, they're going to understand that they made the choice that gave them that consequence. So they're going to hopefully reflect upon that instantaneously and not have to go through that problem. So I always tell parents, spend the time up front instead of spending the time over time. Because if you keep just letting them do what they want to do when they want to do it, you're going to have more challenges down the line. So give them 2 choices, either do this or do that. What do you choose? It's easy for the kid to make the choice. The kid might say, well, I don't want that. I want a 3rd choice. And you can say, well, those are the 2 choices that you have, and then you can kind of stick to your guns. And then to the second part of what you said, try to think of ahead of time what the consequences are going to be. Don't be so outrageous that it's like, oh, no TV for a month now. Because now it's definitely not something you're going to stick with, but it's going to be out of a reaction of frustration. So think of the ideas early on. Okay, this is something that I can follow through with, this is something I can follow through with, and then follow through with it, and then you will see the results, because then the children will say, oh, mommy or daddy, they say what they mean and mean what they say. So then it doesn't have to be a forced discipline, it can create self-discipline.
Exactly.
You know, so I think that's a really good thing.
You know, and cheering the kid on too, you know, positive reinforcement is huge. You actually told the story. I know Japanese and Chinese. I mean, it's been forever that their culture has been around, and they have stories that they pass down from generation to generation. You know, this is true also with the American Indians. Their way of teaching was by passing along stories about the hunt and, you know, different things. Now, you told a story in the book about a group of frogs that were traveling along, and 2 of them fell into a ditch.
Right. Yes, and stories are a wonderful way to convey a message. And a lot of times, if parents can also bring the stories to the children of their life experiences, and they don't have to embellish them in any way, but they can probably soften them in certain areas just to make the point across. But the story of the frogs is really interesting, and I just talked to our leadership team about this, because the story goes that 2 frogs were going in the woods and they fell in this hole. And the hole was just too hard to jump out of. And one frog said, just give up, man. It's just, this is it.
Yep.
We might as well just meet our maker and just hang out and just don't fret about it.
Yep.
And he just kind of just laid there and waited to die.
Yep.
And then the other frog was trying to get out and jumping and jumping and jumping and just really had a hard time to get out. And then there was a farmer,
group of frogs.
Yes, a frog on the
telling
top
him,
saying,
"You're not going to make
don't
it.
worry
Yeah.
about it. Just hang out. Just do
Yeah.
what he's doing. Just
Yeah.
don't come up. Don't
Right.
don't burn off the energy."
Yeah.
And the frog just kept jumping higher and higher and higher and higher and kept moving all the dirt and making the mound a little bit bigger each time. And then soon enough, the frog jumped out, and he's like, "Thanks, guys, for encouraging me to get out."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What are you talking about? We were telling you to give up." And he's like, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm deaf." So he was encouraged. He's
Yeah.
looking at it through his eyes like, "Come on,
Yeah,
you
they
can
were
do
saying,
this."
and meanwhile,
And
they were telling him not
it was
to.
like, just hang out.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, how we as human beings interpret things. And we have our self-doubt, and we have our fears, and we can really make things bigger than what they are. And if we focus in a positive sense, we can really encourage people to do things that they may not think they're able to do.
Okay. All right, the soup is complete. I think we have about a minute left, so I'm going to serve you some soup. And hopefully this is the cure-all that you need to feel better. So, here we go. All right. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Adam, I don't know if I have a napkin for you somewhere.
This is delicious.
Okay. All right, we still have a minute, so I'm going to ask you, there was one other story about the donkey that fell into the well. So we got to make this quick. Got to make this quick.
Well, very similar story, and
Yeah.
and that's where the farmer was saying the same thing. Stay
Yeah.
down. You don't even try it. And he's moving the dirt so much that he's building it up and up
Yeah.
and up and up, and he gets out the same thing. So again, encouraging is really important if you do it in the right way.
Exactly.
You know, the tough love is, I think, a parent's easy go-to. Like, oh, I'm just gonna, because I was raised this way and it worked for me. The challenge with that is there are negative habits that are formed, and we don't know those negative habits because you don't realize them as an adult. Yep. Other people realize them in you and they go, oh, that's not a good quality to have.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't look at our own shortcomings, and we have them all, myself included. My wife and we talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really good to be able to be pointed out those.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Victor Margiotta. And if you can, please try to get involved in the community and share what you have, your best qualities. So thanks for watching.